will help us understand ICI at 75. So the panelists for this session are here amongst us. I'd like to invite all of them on stage. Please welcome CA Mahaveer Singhvi, Joint Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. Thank you very much. I'd like to invite on stage Dr. Prashant Pansare, Chief Executive Officer with Inteliment Group. He'll be the moderator for this session. I'd like to invite the three panelists as well. Please welcome on stage Mr. Viiveck Verma, Founder and CEO, Upsurge Global. We'd like to welcome CA Sanjay Bhatnagar, Senior Director Consulting, Triniti Corporation. And finally, CA Sanwar Harshwal, an eminent technology expert from the United States of America. So the topic under the theme Technology and Startup is very relevant, very pertinent, and as guardians of the data, what role we could play as professional accountants. The topic is securing digital transactions, safeguarding data. And for the opening remarks on this topic, I'd like to invite first CA Mahaveer Singhvi, Joint Secretary with the Union Ministry of External Affairs.
Thank you. Let me begin by thanking the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for inviting me to this important conference. And let me also tell you that I'm also a chartered accountant. I'm working with the Ministry of External Affairs right now. But the first qualification which I acquired was of a chartered accountant, and I have a close connection with the Institute. I'm a member of the Institute's International Affairs Committee and also on the Public Services Committee also. And I've been interacting with the leadership of the Institute quite a lot, and the Institute is really doing good work, particularly in terms of expansion of the Institute's activities outside India, which I'm also, I think I can say, contributed a little bit in that. And very happy to see some of the representatives from abroad here sitting in the front row. And it's indeed a great pleasure for me to come here. This topic, which is of technology and startup and securing digital transactions, safeguarding data, and the role of professionals, particularly the chartered accountants, are, I would say, is very, very important. Before coming to this topic, let me give you some idea of what I do at present. You would be surprised to know that, and many of you may not be aware, that the Ministry of External Affairs has also recently, about 2 years ago, started a division which is called New Emerging and Critical Technology Division. And in that, what we do is something called tech diplomacy. We are working to secure technology cooperation with the foreign countries, not only in terms of acquisitions, but also technology governance, and also exporting the technologies which we have developed. And perhaps all of you must be aware of the India Stack, the UPI, the Aadhaar, the kind of applications which we have developed for the public good. That is something which we're very proud of, and we're trying to give it to the other countries. And we are, and particularly I am also involved very much into all these efforts of the Government of India. Now, coming to this topic, all of you know that the turn of the century, in fact, begin with the digital era. We are living in a digital era. We have a lot of things which are now digitized all across the economy. Chartered accountants are very much part of that, because all your transactions which you do now is digital. And securing your data, safeguarding the data of, you're the custodian of the data which comes to you, and securing those data become very, very important, because you're the trustees of that data. And if you do not perform that work properly, perhaps the trust which your clients or your your businesses which the kind of trust that they have in you may get eroded. And I think that is somewhere perhaps your role becomes very important. If you look at the digital transactions which we are doing right now, uh, you know, you may recall that before 2014, we were one of the most world's unbanked nations, in the sense we had banking penetration was only about 20% in 2008, and it was estimated that it will take about 5 decades to reach up to a level of 80% of banking penetration in the public. But you would be surprised to know that it took us less than a decade to reach there. And thanks to the digital, payments, the UPI, the Aadhaar, and the India Stack, which I talked about. And now almost 80% of the public has, access to the some way or the other, the banking system, the digital payments, and the transactions are done in terms of, digital footprints. Uh, if you look at the data, we have now over 135 crores residents which have been enrolled for Aadhaar, and our UPI interface now has onboarded 376 banks and facilitated around 730 crore transactions, which is perhaps to the tune of 11.9 lakh Indian rupees, 9 lakh crores Indian rupees. So this trinity of policies that the government has launched over the couple of years has helped India build its largest direct benefit transfer schemes, which covers about 310 federal schemes and 600 state schemes with 860 million beneficiaries. Uh, if you look at, at the peak of pandemic, perhaps this enabled the Indian government to transfer about US dollar 4.5 billion directly into the bank account of 160 million beneficiaries, and that's a significant number. And thirdly, they also help make the government more efficient by reducing leakage in the government transfers with US dollar 322 billions. So the digitization itself has benefited the economy a lot. And leakage, as I just gave you the figure, has been one of the important, lacuna which earlier was there is no more there. And I think that's very important. So the digital empowerment has created unprecedented convenience and efficiency in our lives, which has got tremendous opportunities, for our country, for our people. But the concerns related to the security of digital transaction and data safety is important, and that cannot be underestimated. While we have deployed robust legal and regulatory regime, the role of certain technologies such as AI, for example, to add scope and scale to some of the already existing threats, such as digital scam, digital abuses, I think is noteworthy. And perhaps you must note that AI has helping now. It is helping common citizen, but at the same time, it is also helping, a lot of scamsters, a lot of criminals to get into your data breaches. And so, because things if you go to the dark net, you will find that many of the things are available. Like they are offering you models to create some sort of, kind of your own devices or your own models to breach, to have data breaches and all those kind of things. I think that is something which you need to perhaps look at. And these technologies are going to, go further. And I think you must all be aware of this thing, that as we go forward in terms of our technological development, it's going to create more and more complex scenarios in terms of how to address all these technologies. And perhaps, I don't know how many of you have heard about the quantum technology, which is still in the development phase. But quantum is supposed to be at least 10,000, or I don't know, even more faster than the current computing systems which we have. And if that comes, perhaps the entire encryption system which you have right now would perhaps get, compromised. And you would need a sort of quantum encryption perhaps then to secure your transactions and your, data. So I think that is something you perhaps need to learn right at this stage, so that you can plan your things in future for about 10 years or so, because these technologies, to my estimates, are not more than 10 years away. And as they come, all your existing business models, all your existing data security measures, they are going to be obsolete. So I think you need to look at those things, and that perhaps would give you an opportunity to stay ahead of the curve. Uh, as far as the government is concerned, we have developed a lot of guardrails for securing digital transactions and safeguarding data. In the case of digital transaction, RBI, which is the apex regulatory authority, is supervising digital payment systems such as electronic case transfers, prepaid payment systems, and card payments. RBI also sets the rules and regulations concerning digital payment systems, security, risk management, client protection, and other factors. And apart from that, regulations, and there are also macro level rules and regulations for digital payments, including KYC standards, two-factor authentication, and now, in fact, QR codes are also, you're all familiar with. They are also there. And so all these things add to some amount of transaction security, and it's being looked after at the level of government. Similarly, the National Payment NPCI, National Payment Corporation of India, operates and manages payment services such as UPI, immediate payment services, and Bharat Bill payment systems. It is in charge of the creation and operation of these systems, as well as assuring that their efficiency and security and resolving any payment-related issues. In fact, one of the important thing which has been, you know, uh, passed recently in the parliament, and you must all be aware of that, is the DPDP Act, Digital Personal Data Protection Act. This is a new law which has been enacted, and it has gone for almost half a decade of, more than half a decade. I think it's a 1 decade, I would say, 10 to 15 years of deliberations. And after that, this has come into, existence. And this is something I think is very important, because this gives an access and a kind of regulatory framework to secure everybody's data. And as a chartered accountant or as a custodian of your customers' data, or a company, if you are collecting data, you are collecting it as a data fiduciary or a data processor, and you are liable for its security. And therefore, it's important that you think about how to do it, how to devise encryption systems, how to look at more and more cyber security issues. All these things are very important, and perhaps I think would be requiring your attention in the future. I think as a chartered accountant, this perhaps may add some sort of increased compliance requirement, and I would advise all of you to closely look at the provisions so that you stay ahead of the curve. In fact, even the government is liable now. Section 12 of the DPDP Act provides that even if the government is collecting data of anyone, it is liable for securing it. If there is a breach, it is liable to, penalties or kind of repercussions which are provided in the Act. So, as I said, role of professionals such as chartered accountants in securing digital transaction and safeguarding data is paramount, and particularly in the field of cybersecurity and data management. And so some amount of cybersecurity knowledge is very, very essential. And I think as chartered accountants, you must look at acquiring certain skills in that respect. Data Security Councils of India, there's a organization, it is a Section 8 company which offers lot of cybersecurity related courses. And perhaps I would advise all of you to look at those courses to get initial idea of what is required, what kind of cybersecurity measures you should be looking at, what kind of encryption measures you should be looking at, what kind of role which as a chartered accountant or a kind of professional who is holding so much of data for your clients, or responsible for processing of data, you need to perform. I think these are something which you must look at. If you ask me, I would say that there are 5 roles of professionals in this field, and one is first understanding the threat landscape, which I mentioned. There have been instances, Equifax case, perhaps I think you must all be remembering, where a lot of data was stolen. There was a big data breach, and it actually created a lot of problems for the company. So understanding the threat landscape is necessary. Secondly, I think another role which I think is implementing robust security measures. As a professional, you need to ensure that security measures are in place. Educating the stakeholders, that is your third role, and I think that's very important that you make all your stakeholders understand what are the security, kind of, in terms of the kind of problems which may have when you talk about the security issues. Educating stakeholders, therefore, is important. Compliance and regulatory adherence is, I think, is very important because all of you are professionals and you're required to take certain actions in terms of fulfilling all those requirements. And also, the lastly, I think, is continuing monitoring and implementation. That is important. So, in ever-evolving threat landscape, whether it is phishing attack, ransomware, or other forms of cyber threats, cyber attacks are becoming more and more sophisticated. Deploying advanced AI algorithms to exploit vulnerabilities, which I talked about. AI is now helping not only the professionals, the businesses, but it also helping, the criminals, and they are using this to exploit the systems. And this is the added problem, and I think you all need to look at this very closely. Uh, Legal and regulatory landscape, I've already mentioned to you, and that's also, I think, is very important. Government also has a responsibility to ensure that our laws, which are incorporated, have international best practices, and they have, they have embedded international best practices over financial data security and privacy without over-regulating innovations. I think that is something is important because when we talk about regulations, the innovation is something which gets, as a first casualty, and we need to have a balance of these two things: how to maintain innovations, and at the same time ensuring that, for example, AI. There's a lot of debate going on all around the world that how to ensure that AI is not only utilized for a benefit of the people, it also doesn't stifle the innovations, and that is something very important. We need to look at that. Uh, there is also a very important thing which I think is essential for all of us to look at is to close the skill gap. And that's where I said that educating yourself and educating your clients, that becomes important. And about qualified, you don't need to look at those data management, skills, cybersecurity skills. All these things become very, very important for you to navigate through this digital age. And that's very important aspect of your role as a chartered accountant or as a professionals. So in conclusion, I would like to say that as we navigate the digital age, securing transactions and safeguarding data are imperative for the well-being of individuals, businesses, and society as a whole. The responsibility falls on the shoulders of dedicated professionals like chartered accountants who must act as a steward of our digital trust. Their vigilance, expertise, and commitment are essential in ensuring that the benefit of the digital revolution are not overshadowed by the risk it poses. And I think together we can create a secure and resilient digital environment that empowers us all. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And I hope that I've set the tone for the discussion today. We have a very eminent expert panel. They will throw more light on how we can have a more digital, safe, secure, and trustworthy world ahead. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, CA Mahaveer Singhvi, for your opening remarks. It's over to the moderator of the session now, Dr. Prashant Pansare, CEO, Inteliment Group.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us here. This is probably the last session of the day, and we are racing against the time. But thank you, Minister Ji, for your opening remarks, and you have covered such a wide spectrum of things. I think that sums it all. So what we intend to do in next about 30 odd minutes is I have a very eminent panel members here. So each one of us will be making our remarks in 3 to 5 minutes. And then, we will get into the panel discussion. We want to make it interactive so that we can also take your questions more. But before that, let me just give you the perspective about why suddenly, this digitalization is bringing the big change. And as they say that if you don't change, change will change you. And I think that is also going to be very true for the chartered accountants profession, because being good is not good enough. If you really aspire to be the leader and the change maker. So after doing so much of an exhaustive study, a very meticulous and dedication in your profession, which is also being governed by very stringent process control mechanism, why again digital, right? And when I've been talking to many of my chartered accountant friends, they say, "Ki, give us a break, yeah. How can we race against digital strategists and things like that? Because chartered accountancy, profession has been little different." Now, I gave them a couple of examples and one very simple analogy that I'll give you. And why I said that if you don't change, change will change you. The first example was somewhere in mid 70s, where the Telecom Operators Association was protesting on the streets of New York, and their demand was that don't introduce the self-dialing phones, the ring phones, because if you introduce self-dialing phones, the operators will lose their job, because in those times, some of you may recall that if you pick up the phone, it will go to the exchange and then the operator will connect you to the destination. Imagine if that would have not happened, the telephone to the cordless phones, to the mobile and smart mobile, and the mobile 2.0 what we are using. The second example is an Indian context, and that example will actually, I'll also relate with the today's modern times. Is that somewhere in early 80s, there was a protest by Bankers Association for the computerization. It is that computerization will automate, and we will lose the jobs. India, there's no protectionism, but computerization happened, right? And it did automated some jobs. It probably created some redundancy. Uh, but at the same time, on other side, it actually created millions of jobs, and it made India IT superpower in the world today. So understand the impact of change, right? When you're resisting to the change, probably you're not in the bandwagon. And now imagine that what the lockdown has actually done to us, and the historic pandemic and the lockdown has actually given us a new mantra of survival today. When we talk about the future of work, the workplace and workforce has permanently changed. The work automation, no substitute to it, digitization. The workplace is becoming more of digital and virtual and physical as well, right? And both these things together put the workforce has to be digitally savvy or digitally well equipped. So as we say that, tool, technique, teamwork will actually give you the success. Now it's like, your art, artist and instrument. So the instrument is going to be your digital capability that will actually help. And just to, make that point on the historic lockdown, what it has taught us is that imagine that if you had to, go to the bank, withdraw money to buy, medicines and grocery, it would have been a nightmare, right? You were locked inside your homes, but still the life was going on. So the humans were locked inside the homes, but the spirit of humanity was continuing. And I'm sure you would recollect after a few months when people realized that this lockdown is there, for a little longer time, people actually found out the ways, whether it is your, Rotary meeting or, the friends' birthday parties and celebrations, people will get onto, the virtual meeting, Zoom calls and stuff like that, and, sit there with their drink and celebrate. So even if the humans were locked inside the home, the spirit of humanity was continuing. And taking the clue from there, the point I'm making is that look at where this digitalization is taking us. And last 5 years, the honorable minister also made the remark about that. And he gave a perspective, and I'm just reflecting on that. Probably first time we are witnessing that the government is ahead of, corporate or a private sector in terms of digitization. I'm sure many of you know what is called as an India stack, right? So you have an identity layer, you have paperless layer, you have, your cashless or a payment layer, and then you have your, data exchange layer. Now, what does these four things means? And it actually means a lot of impact to your profession. The first is your identity layer. India, or a government of India is already blockchain ready. So you're, right from the, Jan to Mrityu, or, your number, UID number in itself is your identity, right? And then when you're going on top of it, the paperless layer, which is your KYC or your, PAN, DIN, TIN, doing the KYC through digital digilockers, understand, has completely changed the way you are interacting with the government agencies, right? And that getting digital came the next logical step, which was UPI. And we are setting and breaking our own world records every quarter, every month, in terms of the way transactions are happening. So huge number of users are coming into the payment segment, and right from probably the thelawalas on the street to the merchant bankers, everybody has gone on the digital payment gateways in India. We are world's largest smart mobile phone using population with the cheapest mobile internet economy, right? And that actually has changed the way we are transacting. And with the payment layer getting established, understand, the healthcare, agriculture, defense, the commerce, these industry, retail, these industry are ready to revolutionize now, because you have the foundation, you have identity layer and payment layer in place. Now, what does that mean to you, right? Imagine that, you are doing a reconciliation of the transactions for somebody who's actually selling, pani puri or golgappas on a thela, and they are doing their payments on, the phone pay. Now look at the digital innovation, what happened, right? And how once you start digitization, applying design thinking, it's no longer a rocket science. It doesn't happen only for the Fortune 500 companies. Imagine that when this payment revolution started happening and getting digitized. I'll give you a very simple example. Somebody, a hawker who is actually servicing you, and you're giving him a payment, and maybe if he has to service 100 customers, and just receiving your payment and giving you the change back probably will take 1 or 2 minutes to him. So if he's serving 100 customers, how much time it is going in that transaction? And when you experience, just observe this next time you're going to the merchant or a hawker, that he's doing his work, he's serving more number of customers, and then there is a placard that kept there which has a QR code. You're just scanning it, and then 100 rupee prapta hue. He's not even now getting happy and smiling at you, right? He continues his work. Now understand, this is digital at its best. That while you are there, without he attending anything, things are actually happening in the digital way. So now what is happening is, look at the large banks and small banks and cooperative banks and smaller cooperative banks. Now they are also being given a mandate by the bankers that concentrate on your core competence rather than dispensing high volume of loans. Identify the small SMEs and MSMEs and the proprietors who are actually looking at 1 lakh, 5 lakh, 10 lakh mudra loans, because everybody is into the economic ecosystem, right? And then how can you actually leverage on this kind of a data for reconciliation, accounting and auditing, and at that micro level and micro level, both. And that is the reason why you need this digitization, why you need automation, why you need blockchain, why you need artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is going to, automate your mundane jobs. It's of course definitely not a replacement to human beings. It's not only the industry, but it is also the government's worry. Because when people are working in industry, they are earning salary, they're paying tax, and they're spending money. But when you're automating that, with robotics, understand, robots are not paid salary, right? And they don't spend money. So there is an economic cycle, and there is already a discussion that is happening world over. Japan and Germany are talking about industry 5.0. India is somewhere around 2.3. We can't even afford to go beyond 3.0 for sheerly because of the population. But understand, there are certain areas and sections in our society, in our industry, that actually needs automation. And hence I said that if there wouldn't have been automation or revolution in the payment and fintech industry, imagine that you're going to the bank and, filling that green slip and pink slip to get the money out, go to the market and buy the medicines during the lockdown time. Sitting at home, probably you were sending flowers, cakes and gifts, and, you have a cloud kitchen, you're ordering a food, making the payment online. Now, per capita, understand how many frauds are detected. That in itself also is a world record. Right. So while India has been going on the digitalization journey, especially in the payment gateways. And our Prime Minister has all made these passing remarks in some of his uh, speeches, and I think that is quite noteworthy effort. That even if there are people who are illiterate and getting first time into the digital ecosystem and they are working hard, one of the biggest reason is that the ethics and integrity of the people when they're getting into this fold. And that leads to and links up with another very important topic, which will be a point of debate in our panel discussion, is that ethical AI. So your individual ethics, and I'm just parking these points so that we also listen to other panelists, is that what do we mean by ethical AI when we are talking about the data security, transaction security? What is explainable AI? And I'm sure your profession demands it, because your algorithm should not become like a black box. While you're auditing, while you are actually analyzing and interpreting and comprehending the information, be it for a regulator, for your client, or for your own self, for your analysis, that it has to be explainable. And when you're using the AI technology, how do you handle and address these parts, right? So it is definitely a talk of town today, and your profession demands automation, digitization, and then when more digitization, more data, more potential for AI. And that's why probably we are discussing this today. It's absolutely nice to see all of your interest in this particular topic. And I have with me some really distinguished people who have been working on the global arena on technology and digital. So let's hear their thoughts, and then we get into, I have some very pointed questions for them, so that I'm going to be representing you for a couple of questions, and then we will open it for audience questions as well. So scratch your head and be ready with your point blank questions, so that we get the best out of this panel. Thank you very much once again, and over to you, Viiveck.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prashant, and good evening to all of you. I think what I would do in my opening remarks is to really touch upon the fact that, you heard both from Mr. Mahaveer and Mr. Prashant about the opportunity that exists and how the world is changing, how there is a digital revolution, and how the new world is looking very, very different. And if we don't change, then we may become the dinosaurs. But the good news I have for all of you is that the change, and as I see it, I'm an eternal optimist. As I see it, I think the new change or the new world which this digital era is bringing a phenomenal opportunity. And I think as professionals, as specifically as accounting professionals, or as professionals who are focused on helping your clients go to the next level, I think the opportunity is really, really large. And let me try and touch upon a few reasons why I am so optimistic about this. I think, in this world, and you've heard that not just from the two of them speaking before me, but even otherwise, it's an extremely interconnected world. And I think COVID proved that, the whole world just came together, and all the boundaries that existed because of geographies earlier disappeared. The world has now become a lot more uh, interconnected, a lot more local, so to say. The whole digital transactions are kind of ruling the roast right now, whichever way you look at it, not just financially, you look at many other ways. And I remember I also am the curator and licensee for TEDx Hyderabad. We brought the India Stack story to our platform in 2016. And we were shocked at the things that they talked about in 2016. And here we are sitting 7 years later, seeing many, many of those, not just having become reality, but have become game changers for the economy and for the nation that we are. Which brings me to the opportunity that I was talking about, because all this leads to the fact that now there is a guardian that is required of the trust, because the most important aspect, which is the human nature, and however digital the world will become, there is a trust element which is going to remain. There is an integrity element which is going to remain. And as professionals, I think it's a place where you have a phenomenal role to play as the custodians and as the people who are really focusing and becoming the guardians of that trust. And that can happen if you stay ahead of the curve, if you stay at a place where you can not just keep pace with the changing world, with the digital world, but stay a step ahead. And I think just a couple of points that I really want to highlight here, that one is data is something that we have no choice. We can't run away from that anymore, both at a personal level and when you look at it at an institutional level. Now, the question is, how do we deal with it? How do we deal with it in terms of when we reveal the data? How do we deal with it when we manage the data? And how do we deal with it from a security and managing the custodianness of that data perspective? And that is where I think a lot of work is happening, and we'll talk a little more about it, especially I come from the startup world, having been an investor, a mentor to many, many startups, especially in the fintech space. Some path-breaking work is going on in that space, which is going to make our lives a lot more easier. But security is going to become an imperative. It's something that I think none of us have a choice anymore. The trust in the digital era is going to be extremely important element. And I think all of you, as people who've been custodians of trust, and we heard yesterday in the opening remarks, both from the minister and from the vice president, that your signature is probably the only signature which is valued a lot more than many other signatures. And I think in the digital era, it's only going to become even more powerful. The last point I just want to touch upon is that it is going to become a lot more collaborative world, because it's becoming, the boundaries are vanishing, and none of us in our own businesses can be doing everything ourselves, which means that we have to collaborate with a lot of people, some of them in our geographies, some of them in different geographies, some of them from developed nations, some of them not from developed nations, whether it is other people we collaborate with or customers are collaborating, which we need to collaborate with. So the collaborative approach by itself is going to raise a lot of these questions around ethics, that how do we measure, how do we continue to, as a cohesive body, still stay as ethical as, and as they say, the weakest link in a chain is as good as the one who's the weakest. So how do we move the entire ethics up? Because one partner who creates some issue will break the entire piece that will happen. And I think the last comment that I want to leave all of you with, and I think at the end of the panel that you should take away from here, is that the time for us to deliberate on data, real, unreal, what is going to happen, do we need to do something today or is it happening tomorrow, is over. I think from the time you go back to your workplace, if you haven't done that already, it's time for call to action. It's time for us to now say, intellectual discussion on this done, and now we need to get down to doing something about it, because if we don't, then we probably will get left behind in that race. So those would be my kind of opening remarks, Prashant, on the fact that, you guys have a phenomenal opportunity. You should encash, and we'll talk a little more about, and I think you'll get some more insights. That.
Thank you, Prashant. So we are about 40 minutes into the session, and the globe, as we know, is changing, in the sense it is estimated that about 4 cyber attacks happens every minute. So 40 minutes means where there would be already more than 160 attacks happening, and some of them successful. So I think the importance of defense against the cyber attacks and responsibility of chartered accountants, accountants as such, cannot be overemphasized. We are primarily custodian of trust, as Viiveck ji mentioned. And from that perspective, we have to ensure that the reporting that we do, the attestation function that we do, all of that, it basically incorporates the area which deals with data integrity. Because as long as we have the data integrity maintained, the reporting and all of the analysis that we are doing, it would be meaningful. And to do that, it is essential that we safeguard our data, we secure our transactions, and make sure that we are able to report out them with accuracy. Yesterday, Piyush ji in his address mentioned that there are areas which we can explore. So something like we have a routine auditing practice or a routine tax audit practice, and he said that why not go for a niche area? I think this is the right moment, right time, wherein all of us can identify or move into an additional segment wherein we can have assurance part of it around this security that needs to be in place for safeguarding the data and making sure that the transactions are secure. But to that point, I would like to add a caveat. We also talked about globalization and having the Indian firms, like top 4 Indian firms, being able to have a global footprint. One thing that we have to look at, and we have to remember that if or when we are dealing with foreign countries, the rules that are applicable to them in terms of compliance also comes to us bundled. And as these rules are getting enacted, I think Mahaveer brought up the latest addition to the cyber law that was passed in India around the personal information. These laws are pretty stringent, and also they attract pretty hefty penalties. So let's say we are dealing with some customer from Europe, and we are kind of handling their data, right? So the legislation or the laws that are applicable there, the cyber laws, they basically have a control on what data can move out of Europe and what can be stored in a server or in a place which is outside. Similarly, in US, if you look, any credit card transaction, it needs to have a PCI compliance. So those are the regulations, those are the laws, those are the compliances that comes with it. And I think, as Vivek mentioned, we are at the right time, right point in time, right place, wherein we can make sure that we expand our knowledge in that area and include that in our practice. The last thing I think I would like to mention is, uh, as a accounting uh, profession, we all have this responsibility that we make sure we execute, looking at the financial data and reporting out of it. My, I would like to close with the thought that this opportunity of making sure that we venture into this area, we have our internal control audit, all of that, but it is primarily focused onto the internal side of organization. We don't have the necessary knowledge, or we don't look at the external world trying to get into the data of the organization. So these needs a different approach. Internal controls basically take care of the internal side of things, but to be able to look at the cyber attacks or to be able to ward off against anything or the actors that want to penetrate the data from outside would need different approach. And I think we would be able to augment our knowledge in that area with the right training, with the right courses. As Mahavirji also mentioned, there are few courses available in this area. I think that is where we should probably try to go. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. It's good morning. It is not time to sleep now. And I am here to scare you. I have nothing good for you, the chartered accountants. The reason being, our licenses are going to be redundant in 5 or 6 years if we don't evolve, if we don't change. Now, here in this topic, there are few words. One is digital. If anything can be converted into 0 and 1 is digital. And as human being, I have 37 plus trillion cells. All can be digitized, already have been digitized. You might have heard about biohacking. Might have heard about synthetic biology. I mean, if you spend $10,000 to $12,000, you can buy a machine and you can start manufacturing DNA. Means you can create new organism, or you can modify the existing one. Now coming back to our profession, everything we see, we hear, we touch is data. As chartered accountants, as professionals, we have the responsibility. People entrust us data, we have to secure it. Data is transmitted through the satellites. Do we have any idea how many satellites are in the sky right now? Exactly, no one can tell that. The reason being, while we are talking about, some or other satellites are going up in the sky. Then we got the fiber cables. You got these all the microwaves, Wi-Fi, hotspots, all those kind of things. So data is not being transmitted just intentionally. It goes unintentionally too. Your cookies. Sometimes you just say accept, yes, accept. We have no idea what we have accepted. You might have heard about Jeffrey Hinton. He's the father of AI. He has mentioned that these machines will gain consciousness, Atma, in 5-6 years. So look at the trajectory where we are going. Another historian, Yuval Harari, he has mentioned that if this AI goes unchecked, or the human species will disappear from the planet, there will be the new species which is going to take over the planet and run the planet. I have other materials also. Who created the world? As per the Hindu mythology, Brahma. The Bhagwan Brahma created. And who was the first human being? Manu. What was the warning? Go back and check the text. The warning was that someday you may end up owning this world alone. If we are not able to, as the governments, as the society, if we are not able to collaborate and check this AI proliferation, we are on that route. Now coming back to the profession. Yes, it is changing. So now enough sparing, I have some solutions also. What we can do from this point onwards, think. Where exactly we stand as professionals? How we can take this challenge as opportunity? We have to evolve, we have to retool, we have to rethink, we have to reinvent, we have to rejuvenate ourselves. If we are not able to do that, yes, we are in trouble. Thank you.
Yeah, so we are, thanks for those brilliant opening remarks in the first round by everyone. We are a little running short of time. So let me have at least one question to the panel. We first like to give you a preference if you have any questions. So Vivek, first, let me go to you. Because we are talking in the context of chartered accountants and finance professionals, so if you can throw some more specific light as what you think is the balance and should be the focus for them, especially when it comes to technology, digital, and data.
Thank you. Absolutely. Like I said earlier, I'm an eternal optimist. I see a bright future for those of you who do look at things in that sense. So I think what the chartered accountants need to look at, or what accountants need to look at, because you're looking at a larger scope of things here, is to really advance yourself and also start looking at, and I think we talked about it in the opening remarks on how can you enhance your practice to start including cyber security as another area. When you talk about risk, when you talk about compliance, how do you start bringing cyber into that space? And once you do, and once your customers start relying on you for getting information just the way they rely on you from a financial standpoint, can they start relying on you from an information security standpoint? And if you can, then I think that's where the future lies. The second point, and we already heard from Mr. Mahaveer earlier, is that the whole compliance space is also going to become digital. The reporting that we are looking at is also going to start getting digital. So it's again important that you need to start looking at how do you look at what in the startup world we call the regulatory tech space, the reg tech space, because the entire regulatory space is also becoming extremely technology driven. Gone are the days when manual reports were written. Today, data is picked up from 7 different places, collated, and the report is automatically generated. And I'm sure you're already aware from a financial security standpoint, but that's going to start becoming a bigger reality. And I think you need to start really looking at that. Another thing that we talked about earlier, and I did also mention briefly, is a lot more cross-border transactions are going to happen. Going back to the point I made that the whole world is now local, a lot more cross-border transactions are going to happen. So for those of you who are involved, and if you are not, then this is the time to get involved, because practically every organization is now going to be looking to go beyond the shores of the country. And if there are going to be cross-border transactions in a digital world, you need to understand those economies, those technology rollouts, those countries a lot better from a regulatory standpoint also. So that's another piece. And I think the education, which I did talk about earlier, and maybe some of you need to start working on that, not just restricted to training people internally, which is a mandate we need to do, but how do we start talking about awareness to the external world, to our customers? Because it's critical that they also understand this a lot better. I know in my experience, a lot of clients want to deny the fact that there are data breaches and data security possibilities that exist. And I also know some people in your profession who are also still at the stage of denying that they don't need to get involved. And I think that both the denials need to stop. The customer needs to understand that this is real, and your professions need to understand. And the last piece that I really want to leave from a standpoint of the potential is that I'm sure all of you have heard of the VUCA world, which is the reality today. Everything is so volatile, so uncertain, so complex. And in that world, I think you have a role to play from being able to predict the future. Because if you can equip yourself and predict the future better for yourself, more importantly from your client, then that trust element we talked about, you'll establish. And if you can use that to your advantage, I think the world is going to be a beautiful, more place from a business perspective. Because ultimately, your client is only looking for one thing. He's looking at somebody who he can trust, but he's looking at the fact that he can focus on his business. Because one line that I say in the startup world, the only business of a business is to do business. Right? It sounds very simple, but I think it's the most profound statement for anybody running a business, that the only business of a business is to run or do business. If everything else can be given to somebody else who can help the founder to say, I'll help you manage these risks, manage the cyber part, manage the prediction, you focus on your core competency and run your business. That's a beautiful symbiotic relationship you will build with your client.
Thanks. That's brilliant point, Viiveck. Sanjay ji, let me come to you. We've been talking about tech stack and a lot of things that are actually happening inside and at the back end. Can you give us some sense and some tips as how finance professionals can visualize the secure transactions and also how they can have a little better grip on while these exponential digital transactions are happening?
Yeah, sure. So, as we have heard, the quantum of transaction is going up like by the minute. And the way to um, kind of monitor or to be sure that the transactions are secure, the data is secure, is to have a monitoring mechanism around it. Because like in accounts, we usually say, okay, once things have happened, we can have a, like a forensic accounting going on, and we can go back, look at things, how they happened. This is the other side of it. This is where we proactively make sure that things are secure. And the only way to do that is by having a way to proactively monitor. And this is where I think the AI is also playing a big role. A lot of companies, especially in the credit card business, which are the prime suspects for a lot of these cyber attacks happening, all of them, they are developing AI-based algorithms to look at the transactions and figure out what are the fraudulent ones, flag them out automatically, and have kind of a system to send out messages and check that if those are the genuine transactions or not. So that kind of systems are evolving, and we need to be part of that, because we, as a chartered accountant, we know that where things can go wrong. We know where the right checks and balances needs to be in place. And the only thing that we have to do is translate all of that knowledge into systems. So they becomes automatized. We use AI, we use the blockchain, we use the latest technology, but still, in spite of that, have a monitoring mechanism around it so that we can be assured that things are moving as they're supposed to.
Absolutely. Thanks for those, insightful points. Sanwarji, now let me come to you, and then probably I would, also have one question for, the Honorable Minister. What is your sense? I mean, we've been talking about AI, and you actually took us to the Indian mythological examples, to the technology, to the AI now. So if you can give us some sense about the correlation of data and AI, especially in the context of finance professionals.
Sure. So, chartered accountants learn how to get work done by AI. Otherwise, I will give the examples of two more things. One is you might have heard about the AI doctor. So normally we think that this AI one doctor. No. There are billion nodes connected with the large LLMs. They think together, they process information together, they solve your problem together. Same AI driver, autonomous cars are there. We think that my car is driven by one software which I have in my car. No. As of now, 1.4 billion vehicles are there on the road around the world. All those machines will have the autonomous software, and each one is talking to all of them. They are talking like that. So why don't we think about the AI accountant? There's a possibility, right? Same way, the machines will start working in a collaboration as an AI accountant. So it's a very important that we start using AI, and it's really it is easy and it is cheap. Just go to that GPT Pro Turbo, create your own GPTs, start working with that. There is no escape route. We have to use it. In my company, we have started doing it, and we are fairly successful in that. Thank you.
Now let me go to the minister. During, your earlier remarks, you mentioned a very interesting term, and that really caught my attention, is the tech diplomacy. And if you can share, with the fellows, that what do you mean by tech diplomacy and why it is important and crucial in today's time, especially in the Indian context?
Thank you. In fact, I mentioned this in the beginning that the Ministry of External Affairs has started thinking in terms of having more and more collaborations with the outside world in terms of technology, because technology is going to drive the future. Our economy, digitization is one aspect of it, but as we go forward, we'll have artificial intelligence, we have quantum computing, we need super computers, we need, semiconductors. There have been talks about the synthetic biologies and all those kind of things, which is going to alter the world. The world in 10 years' time will not be the same which you see today. It's going to be fundamentally different from what you see today. And we do not keep pace with the world, the development which are happening outside. I was just attending a conference in Switzerland, and they have actually prepared some sort of technology anticipator, which gives you an idea about what would be the technological landscape in 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, and 25 years down the line. So I think there is going to be a fundamental shift. Artificial intelligence is just one aspect which will change the way the world operates. And we need to keep pace with that. If we do not keep pace with that, perhaps we will be losing out in every sector. The gentleman here talked about the large language models, which is why there's a lot of talk about the artificial intelligence because of the generative AI, the boom which has come recently. And that has the potential to transform every kind of work. The work which you do perhaps would become redundant in some maybe in a very near future, a year's time or so. You will have models which will perform all the audit works or the tax work or the kind of litigation you do. All these work would be taken care of by an artificial intelligence model. So what's left for you? I think that's something you need to think about in terms of our diplomacy. We want to keep pace with the world, and that is why we want to see that what is happening all around the world, where we can do collaborations with the world outside, where we can get the technology which is needed for our development as we go forward. We have 1.4 billion people in India. And if we do not keep pace with that, I think we'll be left behind, we'll be, technology obsolete, and we would be perhaps would be again living in a third world, which is, technology, there will be a technologically advanced world, and there is a one world which would not have that kinds of technology. And I think that's the great divide which is going to happen in some times to come. And the work of tech diplomacy is to bridge that divide. And that's why the government has thought about it, that we need to keep pace with the world's in terms of the technological development. And therefore, this division in the Ministry of External Affairs has been created, and I've been given the responsibility to head it for the time being. And we are trying to do a lot of collaborative efforts. You all must have heard about the initiative on critical and emerging technologies with the United States, ISET, as we call it. We are also going to have a similar kind of collaborations. We just had a meeting yesterday on the Trade and Technology Council with European Union. So the government is doing a lot of work to see that we acquire all the latest technologies. We are not left behind in terms of technological development, and we keep ahead and keep pace with the technological development. And if you look at, the government has come out with various missions in terms of, the government is thinking about developing semiconductors in India. The government has offered, there is a semiconductor mission which has been announced, where incentives to the tune of $10 billion have been offered to set up, fabrication facilities here, semiconductor fabrication facilities here. We have also thought about, I talked about the quantum technologies, which are going to be there in next 10 years' time and which will revolutionize the world completely, in fact. It is much more powerful technology. The power of computing would multiply by thousands of times. And I think that is something which we need to look at as we go forward, and how the things would change. You cannot even imagine the computer which you see is something, will become a thing of past. There you won't even need it. You might have seen that now with a chip, you can install it somewhere in your, maybe in a brain or somewhere, and everything would be done digitally, and you will see pictures in front of you. There are devices which have already come. There is a device which was just launched by human AI, or I think just a few days back, which you wear it here, and that would, do away with your mobile. You don't even need a mobile. You just give a command to it by your speech. Please dial so-and-so, Mr. Khandelwal, and Khandelwal would be connected to me. So it's like that. So I think that is the power of technology, and I think we need to keep pace with that, and we need to see that we are not left behind. And that's why the government has thought about it to have a division in MEA, which is dealing with tech diplomacy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those brilliant points. In fact, I do have a lot of questions, but respecting everybody's time and the program schedule, I think we'll stop here and over to the Master of Ceremony for the next proceedings.
Just one point, Prashant, I want to make, just to kind of wake you up. You thought you heard from five of us sitting on the stage here. What if I was to tell you that none of the five who were speaking here were present here? We are living in the world of deep fake, right? So you don't know. I just want to make that point to you that, that's another reality we are living with. So as professionals, we've got to look at that world. But the good news here is that there is an AI we need to get worried about. But there is another AI which is going to save us, and that artificial intelligence, which is the worry, can very easily be managed by another AI, which is called authentic intelligence. And that's not going away. That's not going away from you. That's not going away from us. So as long as in the mathematical sense, we can make sure our authentic intelligence stays ahead of the artificial intelligence, I think we are still in business.
Thanks, Vivek.
I think each one of you can create your digital twin. It's very easy nowadays. With artificial intelligence, you can create Mr. Adukia, you can see digitally the same, having the same voice and same face, same lip synchronization. He would be speaking to you like he's sitting here today. I think that kind of thing can happen very soon. And it's happening. In fact, you see, there are a lot of, politicians, a lot of actors, they have created their digital avatars. It is what is called digital avatars. And now they are, most of the answers, the questions you put to them, they will answer you. Looking at, your questions and looking in face to face, in your eyes and saying whatever you want to ask them to say. I think the world is changing very fast, and I think you need to keep pace with that. One thing I would just like to mention to you is that you must update yourself in terms of knowledge. Think about where AI is taking us. Think about the quantum technology. I think the government of India has launched a quantum mission where an incentive of 6,000 crores have been provided for development, for startups to develop quantum applications. And I think that's where perhaps all of you can advise your clients also, or those who are in startup sphere can look at what kind of applications you can develop. Quantum technologies are going to be the technologies of future, which will outdate or outpace everything. And I think you need to think about that because your work would be entirely changed.
And imagine playing the devil here that twin finds a method to get the biometric and the authentic data. Imagine the world that will exist then. It's not just your twin that exists. You are then going to have to fight with the fact that I am the authentic one. That isn't the real one. I am the real one because they will might have the digital data. So let's get prepared. There's lots of exciting times ahead, but I'm sure lots of positive times.
This can be a timeless debate, but yeah, we have to, take a stop somewhere. Yes, over to you.
Thank you, sir. So the crux is together we can and we will. So this is the end of a wonderful session on AI. I would now request CA Dheeraj Khandelwal, Central Council member, sir, please come on the dais for the felicitation of our dignitaries. Sir, I would request to please felicitate CA Mahaveer Singhvi, Joint Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. Huge round of applause for them. They have given wonderful session to us. Thank you, sir. Sir, please stay back. I would request to felicitate Dr. Prashant Pansare, Chief Executive Officer, Inteliment Group. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful session. Thank you, sir. I would now request CA Hansraj Chugh, sir, Central Council member, ICAI, to please come on the dais. Sir, I would request you to please felicitate Mr. Viiveck Verma, founder and CEO, Upsurge Global. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wise words. Thank you, Hansraj, sir. I would now request on dais CA Ravi Patwa, past chairman, EIRC. Sir, I would request you to please felicitate CA Sanjay Bhatnagar, Senior Director, Consulting, Triniti Corporation. Short and the memento for you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for giving us a wonderful session. I would now request CA Rajkumar Adukia, sir, Central Council Member, ICAI, to please come on the dais. Sir, I would request you to please felicitate CA Sanwar Harshwal, Eminent Technology Expert, the USA. So we are thankful for your knowledgeable talk in the session. A token of appreciation from us to all of you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Sir, I would request all the Central Council members and Regional Council member to please come on the dais for the group photograph. So the smiling faces shows you that it is a very satisfying and a wonderful session we have. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. So this is the end of the all sessions for the day. We'll have other sessions tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.